Salam Tanat, Ainayas Aling. Greetings to Arasi Adinos, Teferi, and the Line of Judah Society and the Brotherhood. Reminding our family, our brothers and subscribers that this is Lech Lekha, Talaita Wut'a, Bamarinya Talaita Wut'a, which is the reading of Genesis, from Genesis 12 to Genesis 17. So this is Lech Lekha according to the Jewish calendar, 5771, according to the Ethiopic calendar, 7503. 7503. And we'll touch on some of the highlights of this particular Torah or read portion for this particular week. First of all, El Shaddai, the Almighty Hunun Chayamla, commands Abram, who later be named Abraham, to leave Haran and to go to the place that, quote, he will show to him, which turned out to be the land of called the Canaanu, later to be renamed Israel. Now, the Almighty then gives to Abram an eternal message to the Hebrew, to his descendants, the Hebrew people in particular, to the Beta Israel, inclusive of the nations of the world, saying that I will bless those who bless you and will curse those who will curse you. Now, finding that there was a famine, Abram, in the land of the Canaan, he found there was a famine. Interesting, very interesting. There was a famine. Notice this and make note of this, especially we as Ethiopian Hebrews. There was a famine in the promised land. So what does Abram do? Abram, he travels to Egypt, to Kemet, right? Which was the main, you could say, Kemet in a sense was like America is today, and therefore the Canaan, or the promised land that was being shown to Abram, and the land of the Beta Israel, the promised land for the children of Israel, is like unto Ethiopia. But anyway, he found this famine there, so Abram, he goes to Egypt, and then he asks Sarai, later to be named Sarah, to say that she is his sister, because he's in some sort of fear or trepidation that they will kill the Egyptians. He believes that the Egyptians are this is a very interesting area. But anyway, the cover story is that he believes the Egyptians are going to kill him in order to marry his wife, his sister wife. This is a note also on another related subject matter that we're seeking to teach on. Anyway, Pharaoh, he evicts Abram. We're just giving you the cover story right here, but please study the details, because like I said, the devil's in the details. The details really give us the full picture when we put this all into context and perspective. Anyway, Pharaoh evicts Abram from Egypt after attempting to take Sarai for a wife. Now they settle in a place called Hebron, later to be known as the Kiryat Arba, and along with his nephew Lot, he settles in Sodom. So Abraham, he settles in Hebron, and Lot, his nephew, settles in Sodom or Sodom. Now Abraham has to rescue Lot, who was taken captive. And here's was a very interesting battle, a very ancient but interesting battle called the Battle of the Four Kings, the Battle of the Four Kings against the Five. Now, entering into the Kal Kidan, or word agreement with Hulun Chayamlak, or El Shaddai, all covenants with the Almighty are eternal, never to be abrogated or replaced by new covenants is what some Jews say. Some Jews say that each covenant is eternal and it can never ever be abrogated or be replaced by new covenants. We're going to go into that and see if that's correct. This is what the so-called Jews teach. We're giving you the overview, you understand, and then give the half of the story that hasn't been told when we start to study together and study the details. Now, Abraham is told that his descendants will be enslaved for 400 years, for a period of 400 years, and that his descendants, the Jews will say, just via Isaac or Yitzhak, through Yitzhak will the offspring be considered yours. Well, that is very interesting because also you remember that Abraham had three wives and a host of descendants, which we have to touch on, and we have touched on before. According to Genesis 21:8, in other words, the crown, it will be given through Yitzhak, you understand, through Isaac. They'll be given the land, and this is Genesis 15 and 18 that we have referenced and quoted often, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river of the Euphrates. And the river of Egypt is not limited to the artificial borders. Please see map without borders and take note of the rivers. Now, one other point that has to be considered and touched on in this overview for the third Senbet or the third Sabbath Shabbat in the year is the matter of Sarai or Sarah, her childlessness, right? She gives in this childlessness state, in the state of not being able to produce a child, but yet there's this promise that Abraham will be great and that they will be great, so forth and so on, but she doesn't have a child. So Sarah or Sarai is suffering childlessness, and there's a very important point even in the nuance between the name Abram and Abraham and Sarai and Sarah. But at the point of Sarai, she's childless. So she gives her handmaid from Egypt, from the Egypt experience, whose name is Hagar or Agar, to Abram for a wife so that he will have children. Now, this is an important note because many say that Hagar was Abram's or Abraham's concubine, or this is concubine, something like that. But if you look at the text of Scripture, it clearly says that she was his wife. So the patriarch in the Bible, the very patriarch in the Bible, is in a polygamous relationship. And we find this throughout the Scriptures. So it's very interesting when we look at what's going on and what's advocated by whitewashed Judaism and Christianity today. But we'll touch on that as well. Now, this child, Ishmael, the Alta Zeta, the grandfather of our so-called Arab and Islamic cousins, is born. Now, here comes the covenant of the Brit Milah, the Brit Milah, or the religious circumcision, which became a big controversy in the New Testament time, in Hawaria Paulos, our brother Paul, the Apostle Paul, speaks on that. So you got to read and study Genesis 17:3-8 here about this religious circumcision. This is where it comes in, and we're going to discuss this hopefully in more detail, the covenant of the Brit Milah. Now, Elohim changes their names to Abraham and to Sarah, and tells them that Sarah will give birth to Yitzhak or Isaac. And it's at this point that Abraham circumcises all of the males of his household. And of course, ones will ask, well, of course, brothers and sisters, especially the brothers, have questions about circumcision to this day, and there was big controversies about whether the Gentiles should circumcise when they became Christian or followers of the Mashiach, in the New Testament times, and many are confused about the proper interpretation of that in the New Testament because they need to return to the foundational text and study of the Old Testament. بسمع والمنسس قدوس أحد أملاك وريتا زفترتا مئرافا أسرا مسكتر أمس ودا ميداما أوت أونا ودا سمايا تملكت كواكبتنما لتا قطراتشوا تتشل اندهونه قطر آلو زرهم اندزيهو يهونا آلو ترجم Translation Genesis 15:5. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Now look toward the heaven and tell the stars, count the stars, and if thou be able to number them. And he said to him, So shall thy seed be. So shall thy seed